The discovery. The abandoned research station hung in the shadow of Altair VI's largest moon, its darkened modules rotating slowly against the backdrop of stars. Captain Elias Reed guided his salvage ship, the Horizon Breaker, toward a docking port that hadn't received visitors in what appeared to be years. The station's outer hull was pockmarked with micrometeorite impacts, and frost had formed in crystalline patterns across viewport panels that once looked out upon the gas giant's swirling atmosphere. Radiation levels nominal. Life support systems dormant but functional, reported Elias, his ship's companion. Her voice, deliberately programmed to sound slightly mechanical, echoed through the cockpit. Station designation: Elias Research Outpost. No distress signals detected. No signs of recent activity. Elias ran a hand through his graying beard. At 47, he'd spent more of his life in space than on any planet's surface. The scars on his face and the creases around his eyes told stories of close calls and hard decisions. Any indication of what they were researching out here? He asked, studying the station's schematics that ARIA had pulled from public archives. Information classified. Station officially decommissioned 3 years ago, following budget cuts to the Colonial Science Division. ARIA replied. Convenient, Elias muttered. In his experience, budget cuts were usually cover for something else. Docking procedure initiated. Prepare the salvage drones. The Horizon Breaker shuddered slightly as its magnetic clamps secured it to the station's docking port. Elias checked the seals on his environmental suit, more out of habit than necessity. The station's life support was functioning, but barely. Temperatures hovered just above freezing, and the oxygen levels were thin but breathable. I'm heading in. Standard salvage protocol. Keep communications open. Understood, Captain, ARIA responded. Be advised that sections 3 through 7 appear to be in vacuum. Structural integrity compromised. Elias nodded, pulling his plasma torch from his belt and stepping through the airlock. The station's interior was dim, emergency lighting casting long shadows across abandoned workstations and discarded personal effects. It looked like the evacuation had been hasty but not chaotic. No signs of violence or panic, just the eerie stillness of a place where people had once lived and worked, now empty of all but ghosts. He moved methodically through the main research hub, tagging valuable equipment for his drones to collect later. Laboratory equipment, data cores, rare metals, the standard salvage fare that would fetch decent prices at the frontier outposts. But something about the station didn't feel right. The layout was strange, with certain sections sealed off behind security protocols far more sophisticated than would be expected for a standard research facility. 3 hours into his salvage operation, Elias had filled 2 cargo holds with equipment and was considering whether to risk entering the station's core, where radiation levels were slightly elevated. That's when he heard it, a sound so faint he almost convinced himself he'd imagined it. A whimper, like a child crying. ARIA. Scan for life signs, he ordered, his hand moving instinctively to the pistol at his hip. Scanning. The AI responded after a moment. No conclusive readings, Captain. However, there is an anomalous energy signature from Section 8B, Laboratory Complex Omega. That section does not appear on the official station schematics. Elias frowned. A hidden lab. Now that's interesting. Following ARIA's directions, he made his way deeper into the station. The security measures grew more intensive. Biometric scanners, reinforced doors, surveillance systems, all were inactive now. Their power diverted to maintain minimal life support, but their presence spoke volumes about whatever had been housed here. The final door required manual override. Elias worked his plasma torch around the edges, the metal glowing red then white before finally giving way. He pushed through into darkness, his suit's lights illuminating a scene that made his blood run cold. It was a laboratory, but not like any he'd seen before. The center of the room contained what could only be described as a cell, transparent walls reinforced with some kind of energy field, now flickering weakly as the station's power reserves dwindled. And inside the cell, huddled in a corner, was a child. Not a human child. Her skin was pale blue with intricate patterns that seemed to shift and pulse with her breathing. Where hair should be, delicate tendrils that resembled fiber optic filaments cascaded down her back, glowing faintly in the darkness. She wore nothing but what appeared to be a medical gown, torn and dirty. Her eyes, large and luminous, reflected his suit lights as she stared at him with equal parts fear and desperate hope. "Elias," Elias whispered. "What am I looking at?" "Species unknown," the AI responded. "Biometric readings indicate severe malnourishment, dehydration, and signs of trauma. Estimated age equivalent to a human child of approximately 8 years." The girl flinched at the sound of Elias' voice, but didn't retreat further. Instead, she extended a trembling hand toward Elias, pressing it against the transparent barrier. The patterns on her skin glowed brighter for a moment, and Elias felt a strange sensation, like someone brushing against his thoughts, a whisper of emotion rather than words. "Help, please. Hurts." He staggered back. "Did you?" Was that telepathy? "I detected a localized electromagnetic surge," Elias reported. "Similar to neural activity but externalized. Captain, I should note that interfering with potential xenobiological research subjects is a violation of Colonial Code 35.7. Elias barely heard her. He was already examining the cell's control panel, trying to determine how to disable it. "How long has she been here?" "The station's been abandoned for years. Based on the automated feeding system, which appears to have malfunctioned approximately 43 days ago, this subject has been maintained in isolation since before the station's official decommitment." "They left her here to die," Elias said, his voice hard with anger. He'd seen many things in his years traversing the frontier: piracy, exploitation, the casual cruelty of those with power toward those without. But this was something else. "Elias, identify the energy field type and suggest disabling methods." "Captain, I must remind you that removal of research assets." "She's not an asset," Elias snapped. "She's a child, and whoever left her here doesn't deserve to call themselves human." Working quickly, he bypassed the security systems and disabled the energy field. The transparent barrier remained, but a panel slid open on one side. The girl didn't move immediately, watching him with those strange, luminous eyes. Elias removed his helmet and crouched down to her level. "It's okay," he said softly. "I'm not going to hurt you. My name is Elias." She tilted her head slightly, the tendrils around her face shifting like curious fingers. Again, that strange brush against his mind, but clearer now. "Elias, help. Take away." "Yes," he nodded. "I'll help you. I'll take you away from here." Slowly, cautiously, she crawled toward the opening. Her movements were weak, unsteady. As she emerged from the cell, Elias could see the full extent of her condition. Her frame was thin to the point of emaciation, and there were marks on her arms and legs where needles or probes had been inserted. Some looked recent, suggesting the research had continued via automated systems even after the station was abandoned. Anger burned in his chest, but he kept his expression gentle. He shrugged out of his jacket and wrapped it around her shoulders. She flinched at first, then clutched the material tightly around herself. "Elias, prepare medical bay for immediate use when we return, and purge any record of this discovery from the logs." "Captain, this action could result in prosecution under Override Protocol, Authorization Read Alpha 9. Purge the logs." There was a pause before the AI responded. "Understood, Captain. Logs purge. Medical bay preparing." He carefully lifted the child, surprised at how light she was. She didn't resist, but pressed herself against his chest, those luminous eyes never leaving his face. The tendrils of her hair-like appendages wrapped gently around his arm, and again he felt that strange connection. Gratitude, relief, but also fear. "It's okay," he repeated. "You're safe now." As they made their way back through the station, an alarm suddenly blared to life. Red emergency lights bathed the corridors, and a mechanical voice announced, "Security breach detected. Containment protocols initiated. Emergency beacon activated." "RIA, what's happening?" Elias demanded, quickening his pace. "It appears removing the subject has triggered an automated security response," the AI explained. "The station is transmitting a distress signal on military frequencies. Estimated response time from nearest patrol, 3 hours." Elias cursed under his breath. The child in his arms trembled, her tendrils glowing brighter with fear. "We'll be gone before they get here," he assured her, though he wasn't entirely confident. If the military was involved in whatever research had been conducted here, things were about to get very complicated. They reached the airlock just as the station's remaining security systems activated. Automated turrets emerged from concealed panels in the ceiling, tracking their movement. Elias ducked behind a support column just as energy bolts scorched the wall where they had been standing. The girl whimpered, burying her face against his shoulder. But then something unexpected happened. The tendrils of her hair extended outward, their glow intensifying. The nearest turret sparked and went dead. Its targeting system scrambled. "Did you do that?" Elias asked, astonished. Her only response was exhaustion, her small body going limp in his arms. Whatever she had done had drained what little energy she had left. With renewed urgency, Elias made a dash for the airlock, dodging the remaining turrets. Once inside the horizon breaker, he sealed the hatch and rushed to the medical bay, laying the child gently on the examination table. "Get us out of here, AI. Maximum speed." "Course." Elias hesitated. Every frontier outpost would have security checks. The military patrols would be looking for them once they discovered the research subject was missing. And even if he could hide her, she needed medical attention he wasn't equipped to provide. "Set course for Haven Station," he decided, "and contact Dr. Sonia Chen. Tell her I found something that shouldn't exist." As the horizon breaker disengaged from the research station and accelerated away from Altair VI, Elias looked down at the alien child. Her eyes had closed, but her breathing was steady. The tendrils of her hair still wrapped gently around his wrist, as if afraid he might disappear. "I don't know what you are, or where you came from," he whispered, "but I promise no one's going to put you in a cage again." In the darkness of space, as the abandoned station faded into the distance behind them, a military cruiser altered course, responding to a distress call from a facility that officially no longer existed. And aboard the horizon breaker, a man who had spent years avoiding trouble found himself racing headlong into what might be the biggest fight of his life. All for a child from the stars who had nothing left but tears. Part 2. The Bond. The horizon breaker slipped through the debris field surrounding Haven Station, like a fish navigating a reef. Haven was technically a mining outpost, built into a hollowed-out asteroid at the edge of the Penumbra Belt. But its real economy thrived on the things that happened in the shadows: black market medical procedures, identity reforging, and refuge for those fleeing various authorities. In the medical bay, Elias watched as the alien child slept. Araya had administered fluids and nutrients, and her vitals were already showing improvement. But she remained unconscious, her body focusing all energy on recovery. The tendrils of her hair pulsed occasionally with soft light, and sometimes Elias felt that strange mental touch, fragments of dreams or memories that weren't his own. "Neural activity stabilizing," Araya reported. "Interesting. Her brain structure suggests evolved capacity for electromagnetic manipulation." "English, please," Elias said, not taking his eyes off the child. "She can manipulate energy fields with her mind. The tendrils appear to function as conduits or amplifiers. It would explain how she disabled that security turret. And why someone locked her in a lab," Elias muttered grimly. The comm system chimed, indicating an incoming transmission. Elias tensed. Communications had been silent since they fled the research station, which was both a relief and a concern. "Source?" he asked. "Dr. Chen, Captain. Secure channel." He relaxed slightly. "Put her through." The view screen flickered to life, revealing a woman in her 50s with silver-streaked black hair pulled back in a severe bun. Her eyes, augmented with optical enhancements that gave them a metallic gleam, narrowed as she took in his appearance. "You look like hell, Reed," she said without preamble. "Nice to see you too, Sonia. Your message was cryptic, even for you. Something that shouldn't exist." She raised an eyebrow. "I'm intrigued, but also concerned. Haven is under increased surveillance lately. 3 coalition patrols in the last month." Elias grimaced. The Interstellar Coalition had been tightening its grip on frontier stations, ostensibly to combat piracy and smuggling, but effectively extending military control beyond Earth's immediate sphere of influence. "I need to dock quietly," he said. "And I need your expertise." "Medical situation." Sonia's enhanced eyes gleamed with professional interest. "Human?" "No. Registered sentient species." "Unknown." "Well, you certainly know how to make life interesting." She sighed. "Dock at maintenance port C7. It's officially offline for repairs. I'll meet you there in 2 hours." The transmission ended, and Elias felt the tension in his shoulders ease slightly. If anyone could help the alien child, it was Sonia Chen. Once a leading xenobiologist for the Coalition Science Division, she'd fled to the frontier after refusing to participate in what she called ethically compromised research. She never elaborated on what that research entailed, and Elias never asked. A soft sound from the medical bed drew his attention. The child was awake, her luminous eyes fixed on him, with an intensity that made him slightly uncomfortable, as if she could see through his skin to the doubts and fears beneath. "Hey there," he said gently. "Feeling any better?" She didn't respond verbally, but the tendrils of her hair brightened, and he felt that now familiar mental touch. "Safe?" "Yes," he nodded. "You're safe on my ship. My name is Elias, remember. We're going somewhere you can get help." She processed this, the patterns on her skin shifting slightly. "Elias. Help." Then, hesitantly, name. He realized she was asking what to call her. "I don't know your name. Do you remember it?" She frowned, the tendrils dimming slightly. "Numbers, not name." Anger flared in him again at the thought of researchers identifying her only by numbers. "Would you like me to give you a name? Just for now." The tendrils brightened once more, and he felt a surge of something like hope from her. "How about Nova?" he suggested. "It means new star." Nova. The word, or feeling, echoed in his mind, accompanied by a warmth that suggested approval. "Nova it is, then." He smiled, reaching out slowly to touch her hand. She didn't flinch this time, instead wrapping her small fingers around his. "We're going to figure this out, Nova. I promise." Haven Station appeared through the viewport, a massive asteroid pockmarked with docking bays and illuminated by strips of harsh industrial lighting. As they approached maintenance port C7, Elias helped Nova into some clothes he'd fashioned from a spare jumpsuit, cut down to her size. She moved cautiously, as if unused to freedom of movement, but her strength was clearly returning. "We need to be careful," he explained as they prepared to disembark. "There are people who might be looking for you. Can you stay close to me and do exactly as I say?" Nova nodded solemnly, her tendrils wrapping protectively around her shoulders like a living shawl. Elias took her hand, and together they exited the horizon breaker. Dr. Chen was waiting for them in a small, cluttered office adjacent to the maintenance bay. Her augmented eyes widened fractionally when she saw Nova, the only indication of surprise from a woman who prided herself on professional detachment. "Fascinating," she murmured, crouching to examine Nova more closely. "The bioluminescent patterns, the neural tendrils. I've never seen anything quite like this. May I?" She extended a hand toward Nova, who glanced at Elias for reassurance before nodding. Dr. Chen gently touched one of the tendrils, which curled around her finger in response. Extraordinary, she breathed, reactive to both conscious and unconscious neural commands. The evolutionary advantages would be. She stopped herself, looking up at Elias. Where did you find her? Abandoned research station near Altair HFY. She was locked in a hidden lab, left to die when the station was decommissioned. Dr. Chen's expression hardened. And you triggered security protocols when you rescued her. How did you know? She stood, moving to a terminal on her desk. Because there's been a coalition-wide alert for a stolen research asset from that exact sector. They're calling it a matter of planetary security. She pulled up a transmission that displayed a simplified silhouette of what was clearly Nova's species, with warnings about potential electromagnetic interference capabilities and approach with extreme caution. They're not identifying the species, Elias noted. No, they're not, Dr. Chen agreed grimly. Which is odd, because I'm almost certain I know what she is. She turned to look at Nova again, her enhanced eyes analyzing every detail. The luminescent patterns, the neural tendrils, the EM manipulation. She's Lumari. Elias frowned. That's impossible. The Lumari were wiped out in the Altair conflict 30 years ago. Yes, that's the official story. Dr. Chen's mouth twisted in a bitter smile. But what if some survived? What if the coalition found them, and instead of announcing their existence, decided to study them? The Lumari's natural ability to manipulate electromagnetic fields could have profound military applications. Nova had been watching their exchange with those unsettlingly intelligent eyes. Now she stepped forward, placing a hand on the terminal displaying her species silhouette. The screen flickered, then stabilized to show not the warning message but images, a planet with twin moons, structures that resembled massive crystalline trees, beings like Nova but taller, their tendrils flowing freely as they moved among the crystal spires. Home came the mental impression, tinged with longing and profound grief. She's accessing the system, Dr. Chen whispered, amazed. Interfacing directly with the electronics. The images change, showing coalition ships descending on the crystalline cities. Weapons fire. Destruction. The Lumari defending themselves with waves of energy that disabled the ship systems but couldn't stop the relentless assault. War. Death. Taken. The final image showed Lumari children, dozens of them, being loaded onto transport ships while their world burned behind them. They weren't all killed, Elias realized aloud. They took the children. For research, Dr. Chen confirmed, her voice tight with controlled fury. The Lumari's abilities would be most malleable, most easily studied and potentially harnessed in the young. Nova removed her hand from the terminal, and the screen returned to its previous display. She looked up at Elias, and the mental impression she sent was clear despite its complexity. Others, like me, still there, still caged. Before Elias could respond, alarms blared throughout the station. Dr. Chen rushed to check her security feeds. Coalition patrol ship just docked, she reported, not scheduled. They're conducting a routine inspection of all vessels currently at Haven. They tracked us here, Elias said, his mind racing. The station's security must have captured an image of the horizon breaker as we fled. You need to go. Now. Dr. Chen moved to a wall panel and pressed her palm against it. A hidden door slid open, revealing a narrow passage. This leads to emergency dock E12. I have a scout vessel there, faster than your salvage ship, harder to track. Come with us, Elias urged. She shook her head. I can buy you time. And I need to access the coalition databases, find out where they're keeping the other Lumari children. She knelt before Nova, her augmented eyes softening. I'll help find your people, little one. I promise. Nova reached out, touching Dr. Chen's face gently. Whatever passed between them in that mental connection made the doctor's eyes widen briefly before she nodded in understanding. Go, she told Elias. "There's a trading post in the Cassini Gap, Persephone Station. Ask for Malik. Tell him Sonia sent you. He can help get you beyond Coalition space." Elias wanted to argue, but knew she was right. They were out of time. He took Nova's hand and led her into the hidden passage, pausing only long enough to say, "Be careful, Sonia." "I stopped being careful 30 years ago," she replied with a grim smile. "That's why I'm still alive." The passage led them through maintenance tunnels rarely used by anyone except drone workers. They emerged at a small docking port where a sleek vessel waited, not much larger than a shuttle but clearly built for speed and stealth rather than cargo capacity. "Air transfer to the scout ship," Elias ordered through his comm unit. "Bring only essential medical supplies for Nova." "Acknowledged, Captain," the AI responded. "Transfer in progress." As they boarded the scout ship, Elias caught Nova looking back the way they had come, her expression troubled. "Dr. Chen will be okay," he assured her, hoping it wasn't a lie. "She knows how to handle herself." Nova's response wasn't in words, but in images and emotions. Soldiers in coalition uniforms, laboratories, other children like her in containment cells. Fear, not for herself, but for what might happen if they were recaptured. "That's not going to happen," Elias said firmly, helping her into the co-pilot's seat. "We're going to stay free, and we're going to find a way to help the others too." The scout ship's engines hummed to life, far quieter than the Horizon Breaker's industrial drives. On the ship's sensors, Elias could see coalition officers spreading through Haven Station, checking identification and searching vessels. "Hold on," he told Nova as he initiated launch sequence. "This might get rough." As they disengaged from the dock and slipped away from Haven Station, Elias realized that in just a few days, his life had completely changed course. From a solitary salvager avoiding entanglements to a fugitive protecting an alien child. A child who represented not just a scientific curiosity, but potentially the survival of a species thought extinct. Nova reached over and touched his arm, her tendrils glowing softly. "Thank you," came the simple but profound impression. Elias covered her small hand with his own. "We're in this together now, Nova. Whatever comes next." As Haven Station receded behind them, and they plotted a course for the Cassini Gap, Elias felt something he hadn't experienced in years. Purpose. And as Nova's tendrils wrapped gently around his wrist, in what could only be described as trust, he knew with absolute certainty that he would do whatever it took to keep that trust, even if it meant facing the entire coalition. Part 3. The Choice. The Cassini Gap stretched before them, a sparse region between two dense asteroid belts where smugglers and those seeking to avoid official notice had established a network of small outposts and trading hubs. The scout ship, which Elias had named the Starfall, moved silently through the darkness, its stealth systems engaged. In the 6 weeks since their escape from Haven Station, Nova had changed dramatically. No longer the frail, terrified creature he had found in the abandoned lab, she now moved with growing confidence. Her command of electromagnetic manipulation had strengthened with her body. She could interface with the ship's systems without physical contact, adjust energy outputs for maximum efficiency, and even create small force fields around objects. More remarkably, her ability to communicate had evolved. Though she still didn't speak aloud, her mental projections had become more complex, more nuanced. Sometimes they took the form of words, sometimes images or sensations, but always clearer than before. Elias watched her now as she sat cross-legged on the deck of the Starfall's small cargo hold, eyes closed in concentration. Small objects, tools, spare parts, even a mug, orbited around her in a perfect circle, suspended by invisible forces. "You're getting stronger," he observed. Her eyes opened, luminous and intelligent. The objects continued their orbit uninterrupted. "Practice," she projected. "Remember more now. What I am, what I can do. Do you remember your home? Your family?" The objects faltered briefly before resuming their path. "Fragments," Mother songs, father's lessons, the crystal trees singing in the wind. A pause, then with greater sadness, the fires when they came. Elias had learned to be careful with these conversations. Nova's returning memories often brought pain along with clarity, but she needed to remember, to reclaim the identity that had been denied her. "We're almost to Persephone Station," he said, changing the subject. "Hopefully this Malik person can help us find somewhere safe, somewhere beyond Coalition reach." Nova let the orbiting object settle gently to the floor and stood, moving to join him at the viewport. She'd grown taller in these weeks, not dramatically, but noticeably, as proper nutrition and freedom from the stress of captivity allowed her natural development to resume. "Not just safety," she projected firmly. "Others. Find others like me." "I know," Elias sighed. "But we need to be smart about this. The Coalition has resources we can't match. And after what happened at Haven." He trailed off, the memory still fresh and painful. 3 days after their departure, news had reached them through encrypted channels that Haven Station had been placed under military quarantine following a security incident. Dr. Chen was listed among those detained for questioning regarding suspected xenobiological trafficking. Nova placed her hand on his arm, her tendrils glowing with sympathy. "Not your fault. Her choice. Like yours." Before he could respond, Elias's voice came through the ship's comm system. "Captain, we are approaching Persephone Station. I am detecting unusual activity in the local communications network. Multiple encrypted transmissions. Security appears to be elevated." Elias frowned. "Put us in holding pattern at maximum sensor range. Something doesn't feel right." They watched as the station grew visible in the distance, a collection of habitation domes and docking structures built into and around a small resource-rich asteroid. It wasn't as large as Haven, but it was known for its discretion and independence from Coalition oversight. Or at least it had been. Elias analyzed those encrypted transmissions. Pattern match against known Coalition military protocols. A moment passed before the AI responded. "Confirmed, Captain. Communications patterns consistent with Coalition tactical operations. Probability of military presence, 87.6%. Elias cursed under his breath. "They beat us here." "Trap," Nova projected, her mental voice tinged with fear. "But how?" "We've been careful, changed course multiple times, used the stealth systems." Nova's tendrils suddenly flared bright, her eyes widening. She pressed her hand against the ship's console, and the screens flickered as she interfaced directly with the systems. Images flashed across the display, schematics of the scout ship, highlighting a small component near the engine core. The component pulsed red in her visualization. A tracker, Elias realized. Hidden in the ship itself. But Dr. Chen wouldn't have. "Not her," Nova projected urgently. "Before. When built. All ships. Watching always." Nova stood, her tendrils beginning to glow with increasing intensity. She placed both hands on the ship's console, and Elias felt the air around them change, like the crackling tension before a lightning strike. "Now," he shouted, engaging maximum thrust to bring them within optimal range of the patrol ship. Nova's tendrils flared brilliantly, their light filling the cockpit. Her eyes closed in concentration, and Elias felt that strange mental connection expand, not just between them, but extending outward, reaching toward the approaching patrol vessel. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The patrol ship's engines sputtered and died. Its lights flickered, communication systems went silent, and it began to drift aimlessly, caught in the asteroid belt's gentle gravitational pull. But the effort took its toll. Nova collapsed, her tendrils dimming to a faint glow. Elias caught her before she hit the deck, lowering her gently to the co-pilot's seat. "ARIA, set course away from Persephone. Maximum speed. Random jump pattern to throw off any pursuit." "Course plotted, Captain," the AI responded. "Executing now." As the Starfall accelerated away from the disabled patrol ship, Elias turned his attention to Nova. Her breathing was shallow but steady, her skin cooler than normal. "Nova, can you hear me?" Her eyes fluttered open, the luminosity dimmed but present. "Did it?" she projected weakly. "Safe now." "For the moment," he assured her. "Rest. You've done enough." She drifted into unconsciousness, her body needing to recover from the immense energy expenditure. Elias covered her with a thermal blanket and returned to the controls, his mind racing with possibilities. Dr. Chen's broadcast changed everything. The existence of the Lumeri children could no longer be denied, and the coalition would face scrutiny from every corner of settled space. But with that exposure came danger, not just from authorities seeking to recapture Nova, but potentially from other factions who might see the Lumeri's abilities as something to be exploited. 3 days later, as Nova recovered her strength, they received a heavily encrypted transmission from an untraceable source. "I hope this finds you well, old friend." Dr. Chen's voice came through, distorted but recognizable. "I'm sending coordinates for a rendezvous. The situation has evolved faster than anticipated. Some of the children are free, but others remain in coalition custody. They're being moved to a secure facility deep within military space. This may be our only chance." The transmission included navigational data for a location in the outer reaches of the Veil Nebula, a region notorious for sensor interference and difficult navigation. "It could be another trap," Elias said aloud, though he wanted to believe otherwise. Nova, who had been listening silently, touched his hand. "Truth," she projected firmly. "I feel her. Not trap." Elias had learned to trust Nova's intuition. Her telepathic abilities seemed to extend beyond mere communication. Sometimes she could sense intentions, especially from those with whom she had previously connected. "ARIA, set course for the coordinates." The journey took them through increasingly remote regions of space, far from established shipping lanes or colonial outposts. The Veil Nebula lived up to its reputation, a swirling mass of cosmic dust and radiation that played havoc with their sensors and navigation systems. If not for Nova's ability to sense electromagnetic pathways through the chaos, they might have been lost entirely. Finally, they emerged into a relatively clear pocket within the nebula. A small station, little more than a modified habitat module attached to a mining rig, floated before them. No identifying markers, no broadcast signature, nothing to indicate its purpose or allegiance. A single ship was docked there, an outdated medical transport vessel with its identification transponder deactivated. "ARIA, scan for life signs," Elias ordered. "Multiple readings, Captain. Predominantly human, but several match Nova's biological patterns." Nova stood abruptly, her tendrils flaring with excitement and hope. "Others, like me." "Easy," Elias cautioned. "Let's be sure first." They docked with careful precision, and Elias insisted that Nova remain aboard the Starfall until he confirmed it was safe. She agreed reluctantly, but he could feel her impatience as he sealed the airlock behind him. The station's interior was utilitarian and cramped. Elias moved cautiously, rifle ready, following signs of recent habitation. He found Dr. Chen in what appeared to be a makeshift medical bay, tending to a young Lumeri child whose tendrils were significantly shorter than Nova's. "I was beginning to think you wouldn't come," she said without looking up from her work. "You took quite a risk with that broadcast," Elias replied, lowering his weapon but not holstering it yet. "Calculated, not reckless." She finished applying a regenerative patch to the child's arm and turned to face him. He noted with concern that her augmented eyes showed signs of damage. One flickered intermittently, the metal around it scared. The coalition couldn't silence everyone, not with evidence that damning. Public opinion forced their hand. "How many did you get out?" 7, she said, gesturing toward an adjacent chamber where Elias could glimpse other small forms resting on cots. "There were 23 in total, spread across various facilities. The others were moved before I could reach them. And you know where they're taking them." She nodded grimly. a research station in deep space, beyond the boundary of settled territories. They're consolidating their assets, as they call them, preparing to disappear with them. When? The transfer is already underway. We have less than 48 hours before they're beyond reach forever. Elias felt the weight of the situation pressing down on him. I came here to find safety for Nova, not to start a war with the Coalition. The war was started 30 years ago, when they decided an entire species was worth more as research subjects than as living beings. Dr. Chen's damaged eye sparked briefly as her emotional state affected its systems. I've assembled a team. People like us who've seen too much to stand by. We have a plan. But we need Nova. Why? Because the facility's security systems are designed specifically to contain Lumari abilities. But they never anticipated an adult Lumari with fully realized powers. The children were all taken young, before their abilities fully manifested. Nova is different. She's had freedom. She's growing stronger. She could be the key to getting past those defenses. Elias shook his head. She's still a child herself. I won't put her at risk. Ask her, came a new voice from behind them. Elias turned to find Nova standing in the doorway, having ignored his instructions to remain on the ship. Her gaze was fixed not on him or Dr. Chen, but on the young Lumari in the medical bay. The two regarded each other with silent intensity, their tendrils glowing in synchronous patterns, communicating in a way Elias couldn't understand. Nova, I told you to stay on the ship, he said, but without real anger. My people, she projected simply. My choice. We don't even know if this plan has a chance of working, he argued. It's a military facility, heavily guarded. Children, caged, like me. Her mental voice was resolute. No one should be alone in the dark. The words struck Elias with painful clarity. She wasn't just thinking of the other Lumari. She was remembering herself, trapped in that abandoned lab, forgotten and left to die. If he hadn't happened to find her. I'm going with you, he said finally. Whatever this plan is, I'm going to be there. Dr. Chen nodded, a hint of relief breaking through her professional demeanor. I was counting on that. We leave in 6 hours. I'll introduce you to the others. The team, as it turned out, was a motley collection of individuals united only by their opposition to the Coalition's methods. A former military pilot discharged for questioning orders, a communications specialist who had intercepted transmissions she wasn't meant to see, a security expert who had once designed the very systems they would need to breach, and a young doctor who had briefly worked at one of the research facilities before fleeing in disgust. Their plan was audacious, possibly suicidal. Using Dr. Chen's access codes and the security expert's knowledge, they would approach the facility under the guise of an authorized transfer. Once inside, Nova would use her abilities to disrupt the specialized containment systems, freeing the other children. Meanwhile, the team would secure an escape route and transportation for all the Lumari. The facility is located here, the security expert explained, displaying schematics on a holographic projector. In deep space, no nearby planets or stations. Completely self-sufficient and heavily defended. What about reinforcements? Elias asked. That's our window of opportunity, the former pilot interjected. The Coalition is scrambling to contain the political fallout from Dr. Chen's broadcast. Most of their rapid response forces have been redirected to damage control operations across settled space. The facility will be operating with minimal external support for approximately 72 hours. As they discussed the details, Elias watched Nova interacting with the rescued Lumari children. Though still weak from their ordeal, they gathered around her like moths to flame, their tendrils intertwining with hers in silent communion. He realized she was no longer the frightened, isolated child he had found. She had become something more, a symbol of hope to her people. They need me, she projected when she caught him watching. I am strong for them. The next 6 hours passed in a blur of preparation. Equipment was checked and rechecked. Contingency plans were established. The medical transport was modified to accommodate all the Lumari children they hoped to rescue. As they made final preparations to depart, Elias pulled Nova aside. "Are you sure about this?" he asked quietly. "Once we start, there's no turning back." Her response was not in words or images, but in pure emotion, determination, courage, and a fierce protectiveness toward those still captive. "Together," she projected finally. "You and me." "Together," he agreed, squeezing her hand. The journey to the research facility was tense and silent. They traveled in 2 vessels, the modified medical transport carrying Dr. Chen, the team, and the rescued children, and the Starfall with Elias and Nova. The plan required them to approach separately, the transport as an expected delivery, and the Starfall as an unscheduled maintenance vessel. As they neared their destination, Elias could feel Nova's anxiety growing, her tendrils glowing more intensely. "What is it?" he asked. "Feel them," she projected. Pain, fear, many minds crying. They had known the approximate number of captive Lumari, but the reality of their suffering, felt directly through Nova's growing telepathic abilities, was clearly overwhelming. "Focus," Elias urged gently. "We'll help them, but we need you centered." She nodded, her tendrils dimming slightly as she regained control. The facility came into view, a massive structure floating in the emptiness of space, its design clinical and imposing. Multiple docking ports lined its outer hull, with defensive systems positioned at strategic intervals. No identifying markers, no broadcast signature. Officially, it didn't exist. "This is Medical Transport MT-482, Dr. Chen transmitted from the lead vessel, requesting docking clearance for scheduled transfer of research subjects." There was a pause. Then, "Transport MT-482. Transmit authorization codes." The security experts sent the codes they had prepared, authentic credentials obtained through Dr. Chen's connections. Another pause, longer this time. Elias held his breath. "Transport MT-482. You are cleared for docking at Port 5C. Prepare for standard containment protocols upon arrival." Phase 1 complete. Now it was Elias's turn. "Research facility. This is maintenance vessel SV-709, he transmitted. "We received an automated alert regarding life support fluctuations in Section 7, requesting permission to dock and conduct diagnostics." This was the riskiest part of their approach. If the facility's systems hadn't received the false alert their security expert had planted, they would be denied and potentially flagged as suspicious. "Maintenance vessel SV-709, standby." The seconds stretched into minutes. Nova's hand found his, squeezing tightly. "Maintenance vessel SV-709. We have no record of a scheduled inspection. However, our systems do indicate minor fluctuations in Section 7 air recyclers. You are cleared for docking at Port 3A, limited access only." Elias released the breath he'd been holding. "Acknowledged facility. Proceeding to Port 3A." As they maneuvered toward their assigned docking port, he glanced at Nova. She was trembling slightly, but her expression was resolved. "Remember the plan," he said softly. "We get in, you locate the central containment systems, we free the children, and we get out. No heroics, no deviations." She nodded, but there was something in her mental presence, a resonance he couldn't quite define, that made him uneasy. They docked without incident, and Elias equipped himself with the maintenance tools that would serve as their cover. Nova wore a technician's jumpsuit, her tendrils tucked beneath a cap designed to minimize their glow. As they passed through the airlock into the facility, they were met by a single security officer, his expression bored and unsuspecting. "Maintenance credentials," he demanded, holding out a scanner. Elias presented the forged identification chip their security expert had prepared. The officer scanned it, nodded, and gestured toward a corridor. "Section 7 is that way. Don't deviate from your assigned route. You have 90 minutes to complete repairs." "Understood," Elias replied, projecting the casual confidence of someone who belonged. They moved through the facility's sterile corridors, every step bringing them closer to the central hub where, according to their intelligence, the containment systems were controlled. At the first junction, they diverted from their assigned path, slipping into a maintenance shaft that would allow them to move more freely without surveillance. Elias whispered into his comm unit, status on the medical transport. Docked successfully, Captain. The AI responded. Dr. Chen's team has initiated their phase of the operation. So far, so good. They continued through the maintenance shaft until they reached a security checkpoint that guarded access to the facility's intersections. This was where Nova's abilities would be crucial. "Ready?" he asked her. In response, she removed her cap, allowing her tendrils to flow freely. Their glow intensified as she concentrated, reaching out with her mind toward the security systems. Complex, she projected after a moment, but similar to before. Can disable. Her tendrils flared brightly, and Elias felt that now familiar shift in the electromagnetic field around them. The security panel on the door flickered, then went dark. The lock disengaged with a soft click. They slipped through, finding themselves in a wider corridor that led toward the center of the facility. Elias checked his handheld scanner, confirming they were moving in the right direction. But something was wrong. The corridor was too quiet, too empty. According to their intelligence, this area should have been staffed with researchers and security personnel. "It's a trap," Elias realized aloud, just as alarms began to blare throughout the facility. Nova's tendrils whipped around her in agitation. "Children. Need to find. We need to abort," Elias countered, grabbing her arm. "They knew we were coming." But Nova pulled away, her mental voice frantic. "No. Close now. Feel them." Before he could stop her, she was running down the corridor, following some telepathic connection he couldn't perceive. Cursing under his breath, Elias followed, weapon drawn. They burst into a large chamber that confirmed their worst fears. Not a trap, but an evacuation in progress. The room contained dozens of specialized containment cells, each designed to hold a Lumari child. But many were already empty, with coalition personnel frantically preparing the remaining children for transport. Nova froze at the sight, her tendrils glowing almost blindingly bright. The nearest researchers looked up in shock, then alarm as they recognized what she was. "Security breach in central containment," one shouted into a comm unit. "Adult Lumari subject." Elias raised his weapon, but it was too late. Security forces poured in from adjacent chambers, weapons trained on them. "Stand down," barked the lead officer. "You are in violation of coalition security protocols. This is a restricted research facility." Elias's mind raced. Where was Dr. Chen's team? Had they been captured as well? The plan was unraveling rapidly. Nova stepped forward, her gaze fixed not on the security forces, but on the Lumari children still in their cells. Her tendrils reached out, connecting with theirs in silent communication. Together came her mental voice, stronger than Elias had ever felt it, resonating not just in his mind, but seemingly throughout the chamber. "Together we are strong." To his astonishment, the tendrils of every Lumari child began to glow in synchronized patterns with Nova's. The lights in the chamber flickered, then went out entirely, plunging them into darkness except for the ethereal blue-green glow of the Lumari. What happened next would later be described by survivors as the awakening. The combined electromagnetic manipulation of Nova and the children created a cascading failure throughout the facility's systems. Containment fields collapsed. Security doors malfunctioned. Communications went dark. Weapons systems powered down in their users' hands. Elias found himself moving through chaos, guided only by Nova's glowing form as she moved from cell to cell, freeing the children. Coalition personnel fled in panic or stood frozen in shock, their authority suddenly meaningless. "This way," came Dr. Chen's voice from a side entrance. She and her team had fought their way through to the containment center, though not without cost. 2 of their number were missing, and the others showed signs of combat. Together, they gathered the freed Lumari, 16 children in total, and began their retreat toward the docking bays. The facility was in complete disarray, emergency systems failing faster than they could be restored. But as they neared the exit, a final obstacle presented itself. A squad of elite security forces, equipped with specialized gear designed to resist electromagnetic disruption, blocked their path to the docking bay. "This ends now," their commander announced. "The Lumari subjects will remain in coalition custody. Drop your weapons and surrender." Elias moved to shield Nova and the children, but she stepped past him, her tendrils flowing like liquid light. "No more cages," she projected, the words somehow audible to everyone present. "No more pain." The security forces raised their weapons, but hesitated, some out of fear, others perhaps affected by the moral implications of what they were witnessing. In that moment of hesitation, Nova acted. Her tendrils extended to their full length, connecting with each of the Lumari children. Together, they generated an electromagnetic pulse, so powerful it overloaded even the specialized equipment of the security forces, sending them collapsing to the floor, unconscious but alive. But the effort was immense. Nova staggered, her glow dimming dangerously. "Nova." Elias caught her as she fell, her small body suddenly limp in his arms. "Go," she projected weakly. "Take them. Safe." "Not without you," he insisted, lifting her carefully. "Never without you." They rushed to the docking bay, finding both their vessels still secure. The medical transport was large enough to accommodate all the rescued children, but with Nova's condition deteriorating, Elias made a split-second decision. "I'm taking her back to the Starfall," he told Dr. Chen. "Our medical systems are calibrated to her specifically. Get the others out. We'll follow." Dr. Chen nodded, understanding in her augmented eyes. "Rendezvous at the coordinates we discussed." "And Elias," she hesitated. "Thank you for showing us all what courage looks like." As the medical transport disengaged and accelerated away from the facility, Elias carried Nova aboard the Starfall, laying her gently on the medical bed. HFY, full diagnostic scan, prioritize neural activity and energy expenditure. The AI complied, and the results confirmed his fears. Nova had pushed herself far beyond her limits. The synchronized connection with so many of her kind, the massive electromagnetic disruption, it had drained her to a critical level. "She requires immediate energy replenishment," HFY reported. "Cellular deterioration has begun." "Options," Elias demanded, desperation creeping into his voice. The ship's power core could provide sufficient energy to stabilize her, the AI suggested. However, direct interface would be dangerous for both the subject and ship systems. Elias looked down at Nova, her tendrils now barely glowing, her breathing shallow. She had risked everything to save her people, children she had never met but felt connected to through their shared pain and heritage. "Do it," he ordered. "Reroute power from the core to the medical bay." "I'll handle the interface." HFY hesitated, an unusual response from the normally efficient AI. "Captain, the energy transfer will require a biological conduit. The risk to your neural system would be extreme." Elias understood what HFY was saying. To save Nova, he would need to serve as a living bridge between the ship's power and her depleted system, a process that could very well kill him. He looked down at Nova again, remembering the frightened child he had found in that abandoned lab. How far she had come, how much she had grown, how much she still had to live for. "Begin the procedure," he said quietly. "Captain." "That's an order, HFY." As the Starfall drifted away from the now failing research facility, Elias took Nova's hand in his. Her tendrils, weak but responsive, curled around his wrist in a gesture that had become familiar, comforting. "Elias," her mental voice was faint, distant. "What happening?" "I'm going to help you," he said simply. "The way you helped all those children." He felt rather than saw her understanding, her mental presence brightening briefly with alarm. "No, dangerous." "My choice," he echoed her words from earlier. We're in this together, remember? The ship's lights dimmed as AIA diverted power to the medical bay. A specialized conduit extended from the wall panel, designed to channel energy in controlled bursts. Elias placed one hand on it, keeping his other firmly clasped with Nova's. As the energy began to flow, pain unlike anything he had ever experienced coursed through him. It was like being burned from the inside out, every nerve ending screaming in protest. But he held on, focusing on Nova's face, on the gradual brightening of her tendrils as the energy transferred through him to her. Time lost meaning in that haze of pain and purpose. He might have screamed, probably did, but he didn't let go. Not when his vision blurred, not when his heart began to stutter in his chest, not even when AIA's voice warned him that he was approaching critical limits. Just when he thought he could endure no more, he felt Nova's presence in his mind. Stronger now, more vibrant. Enough, she projected urgently. Elias, enough. Her tendrils wrapped around him, pulling his hand away from the conduit. The sudden cessation of energy left him gasping, collapsing beside the medical bed. Nova slid down to the floor next to him, her tendrils cradling his face as darkness encroached on his vision. "Are you okay?" he managed to ask, his voice barely a whisper. In answer, she pressed her forehead to his, and he felt her response not in words, but in pure emotion. Gratitude, concern, and something deeper, more profound. Something like love. "Rest now," she projected gently. "My turn to help you." As consciousness faded, Elias felt her tendrils envelop him, their glow warm and protective. His last thought before darkness claimed him was simple but profound. He had found her alone and afraid in a cage, and in saving her, he had somehow saved himself as well. Elias awoke to the sound of children laughing, a sound so unexpected that for a moment he thought he was dreaming. He opened his eyes to find himself in unfamiliar surroundings, a room with walls of living crystal that shifted colors with the light, and beyond them, through a large window, a vista of swaying purple-leafed trees beneath twin moons. "Where?" he began, trying to sit up. "Home," came a voice beside him. Not a mental projection, but actual spoken words, though with a musical quality unlike human speech. He turned to find Nova sitting in a chair by his bed. She looked different, taller, her features more defined, her tendrils flowing freely around her shoulders. But the most striking change was in her eyes, still luminous, still deep, but now filled with a confidence and peace he had never seen before. "You spoke," he said in wonder. She smiled. "I am learning. Your way and mine." Her hand found his, tendrils wrapping gently around his wrist in the familiar gesture. "Good?" "Very good," he assured her, smiling despite his confusion. "But I don't understand. Where are we? How long was I unconscious?" 3 weeks, she said carefully, the words still new on her tongue. "After the rescue, you were very hurt. Dr. Chen brought us here, safe place, and the other children." Nova's smile widened. "Come," she said, helping him to stand. She led him to the window, where he could see more clearly the landscape beyond. What he had taken for a garden was in fact an entire settlement. Buildings of the same crystal-like material integrated seamlessly with the natural environment. And moving among them were Lumeri of all ages, not just the children they had rescued but adults as well, their tendrils flowing freely in the gentle breeze. "I don't understand," Elias repeated. "I thought the Lumeri were." "Not all died," Nova explained, her spoken language improving with each sentence. "Some escaped, hid, built this place, secret from coalition. A surviving colony." Elias breathed, amazed. "And the children we rescued? Home now," she said simply, "with their people, learning who they are." As they watched, a group of the rescued children ran past below, playing some game that involved manipulating small objects with their electromagnetic abilities. Their laughter carried up to the window, bright and free. "And you?" Elias asked softly, turning to look at her. Is this your home now, too? She met his gaze, those luminous eyes searching his. Home is. She hesitated, searching for the right words. Home is where you choose to be, with who you choose. Understanding dawned slowly. You can stay here, Nova, with your people. You should stay here. I can, she agreed. But choice is mine. She took both his hands in hers, her tendrils glowing softly. And I choose both. My people. She gestured toward the settlement. And you. Me, he asked, his voice rough with emotion. She nodded. You found me when I was nothing. Gave me choice when others gave only chains. You are. She struggled briefly with the language, then switched to mental projection, filling his mind with images of stars guiding a lost ship home, of roots anchoring a tree against storms, of hands reaching across darkness to offer light. Family, she projected finally. You are my family. Elias felt a tightness in his chest that had nothing to do with his injuries. He had been alone for so long, a solitary figure moving through the shadows of the galaxy, fixing broken things, but never the brokenness inside himself, until a chance discovery had changed everything. What happens now? He asked, his voice still unsteady. Nova smiled, gesturing toward the window again. In the distance, beyond the settlement, the starfall sat in a clearing, its hull gleaming in the light of the twin moons. Now we choose, she said. Stay sometimes, go sometimes, help others like me, still lost, still waiting to be found. She looked at him, hope and determination shining in her eyes. Together. Elias looked out at the peaceful settlement, at the children playing freely beneath alien trees, at the ship that had carried them through so much danger and brought them to this unexpected sanctuary. Then he looked at Nova, who had transformed from a frightened captive into a bridge between worlds. Together, he agreed, and for the first time in longer than he could remember, the future seemed not just bearable but bright with possibility. As they stood there, Nova's tendrils glowed with a soft, steady light, not the frantic brightness of fear or the intense flare of defensive power, but the warm, constant illumination of belonging. And in that light, Elias understood that what had begun as a rescue had become something far more profound, a reminder that even in the darkest corners of the universe, hope could be found, connections could be forged, and family could be created from the most unexpected beginnings. The cage that had once held a forgotten child had given way to a universe of possibility, and that perhaps was the greatest discovery of all.